Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, mothers, fathers, daughters, sons, brothers, and sisters. Welcome back to the AFvRC channel for some more amazing racing here from our wonderful representatives of our armed forces. My name's Chris Buxton. I'll be one of your commentators for this one-off broadcast, although it is a championship that is being run by the AFvRC. It is their GT3 Cup round number 6. Takes us to the Ardennes Forest, a circuit known by any racing fan of pretty much any discipline. It is, of course, Spa-Francorchamps. And as always, I am not going through the festivities alone. I have the honor and pleasure of being joined by a stalwart of sim racing commentary and also trackside. I am joined by Ewan O'Leary. Hello, Ewan. Great to be alongside you for this event.
Yeah, good evening. Good to be alongside you as well. Looking forward to this, not least for the event itself, but it's my first chance, and many people's first chance, I suppose, to see the new version of Spa in iRacing, a new laser scanned version with the added space on the exit of Eau Rouge and Radion. You can just see it at the bottom of the camera shot here, the gravel a little bit closer in the distance down at La Source, and a whole host of other changes as well for us to talk about, as well as a new car and all sorts in the GT3 category. And in isolation, GT3 racing at Spa is always exciting. There's a reason why the biggest GT3 race in the world is held at this venue, and that's because its racing is so good. And looking forward to some more of that here tonight.
Absolutely so. Now, I make no apology for the fact I love this circuit. It is such a historic venue, but it just has something for everybody. When you've got the pace in the straights or the pace in the corners, there is something for your car. And it really is a true test of drivers' skill and devotion to their craft. It is a wonderful place, and we will be covering the last half of qualifying very shortly. So it's a 20-minute qualifying session, which you can see in the backgrounds of the shot at present, of which we have got 16 cars that have joined the session, and 15 of which it looks like are circulating at the moment. Some familiar names at the top of the championship board, or say familiar to those that have followed AFvRC series in the past: Chris Boland, Ryan Martin, Alex Pantelli, Pete Plastow, James Taylor, Tom Stevens, Chris Pauly, James King. Very, very heavy hitters in various AFvRC series and championships in the past. And it is currently Chris Boland that sits at the top of that's a highly colourful Porsche. Struth alive. That is, well, you want to talk about something for everybody. I'm somewhat lost for words on how to describe that.
Multicoloured, I guess, is to put it very simply. I don't mind it.
Yes.
Actually. I think it's not a bad liberty. I'd imagine as well, by the way, he's teammates with, as far as data I'm seeing anyway, James King and Chris Pauly. I'd imagine they have somewhat similar liveries. So there'll be a few of them out there. Indeed, there are a couple of teammates who will likely be running a similar livery. We were seeing a couple of drivers in the same sort of very light lime green earlier on. I think it was James Taylor and Alex Pantelli who were in that same green colour as well. So we'll be seeing a few teammates. Maybe we're even working together during this qualifying session, if at all possible. There are the two green Porsches who are not quite working together at the moment. But Spa is one of those circuits where you can, using the slipstream with one another down the Kemmel Straight, or up the Kemmel Straight, I should probably say more accurately. It is a long drag uphill. That could gain you some time, and in a close qualifying session with the front two only separated by 0.08 of a second right now, then that amount of slipstream, that little bit of slipstream, may well be important. So we'll see if any teammates decide to play those games.
Ryan Martin has just taken the pole spot with a 279 on the board, as you can see on the tower. The 186 Porsche currently ruled in the race. Now the Porsches have certainly been ruling the roost a bit when it comes to this championship, or this cup, call it what you will. Over 50% of the top 10 are in the German mark. However, that may well be changing, as Ewan was alluding to earlier. The McLaren 720 has been introduced, and 3 of our drivers are running it today here at Spa-Francorchamps. That's John Finch, Scott Eastwood and Sam Bunn, which we will be catching up with in the course of the broadcast. Half of our qualifying session still to go. There is one of the McLarens. I will do my best not to completely fanboy the McLaren. I can't promise it. I will try. So we are currently looking at Scott Eastwood in the number 82 car. He was previously in the Ferrari earlier in the season. Swapped or opted to swap was the sentence I was aiming for, to the British mark. We'll see how he gets on with that. Makes it absolutely glorious. Actually, they all make a various variety of wonderful noises and screams. Do quite like the McLaren. There are a couple of Mustangs. Matt Forrest up in fourth is the lead of our McLarens at the moment. There is James King, so currently third. Now he's in one of our BMWs, so again a bit of a different noise for that one. Superb effort for him. Just 2:18.678, not even a second off the top spot at the moment. It's his last time here, so he set a personal best in sector 1 on the previous occasion. That is Matt Forrest in one of the gloriously growling Fords. So you'll hear that one before you see it, inevitably. So 3 different marks inside the top 4, or top 5 even. Good effort there. Our top Ferrari is Tom Stevens in 7th position. And our top McLaren at the moment is John Finch in 10th position. That was only released this week, so we can forgive those that have made that switch and seeing how they fare with it, as we are looking at the numbers 89 Ferrari of Tom Stevens just coming over the line. So his current best at 2:19.197. Does he improve on this occasion? He does not. But you're more I think you're a bit more adept in the driving aspect than I am, Ewan. Would you have a chariot of choice for this particular event?
I don't know if I'd describe myself as very adept at driving, but the only car, GT3 car I actually own, or indeed have ever done a race in, is the BMW, which I bought for the Spa 24 Hours 1 year ago, because it is so sort of stable, if you like. It's very difficult to make that car spin ever. It's just very planted, difficult to get the back end around. If you don't like understeer, then it's probably not your idea of fun, but for a long race especially, it's a good idea to pick a car like that. I found maybe less so for a sprint race. You can get away with more in a sprint race because of the limited time frame. You don't have to concentrate for 24 hours and keep it on the road. Instead, it's just 40 minutes here tonight with an added pit stop, so that's going to be factored in. I think all of these drivers, though, or most of them anyway, will have had a fairly decent selection of cars to choose from, and they will have just picked which they think drives best, really. It's such a varied calendar as well that there's not much point trying to pick a car based on a characteristic, because there's no common characteristic throughout the circuits. If anything, I guess straight line speed can be sort of foregone a little bit. This circuit I would describe as probably the most straight line speed heavy, so maybe in the past you'd go away from the McLaren, because the McLaren 12C, which I mourn the loss of, by the way, is the car that you would choose for straight line speed driving. However, there aren't many straight line speed circuits on this calendar. However, with the was it 1220S, or no, not 1220, what's it called, 720 or something like that, the new McLaren in the fray, just wonder whether people have gone to that a little bit based on the fact that it's new, of course, but also the fact that straight line speed is not going to be a huge factor. I think the novelty of a McLaren is probably the main thing as we go on board with one now for the first time. John Finch, the fastest of the McLaren so far, as you say, getting used to a new car, and so it's very difficult to see them maybe even inside the top 5 by the end of tonight.
I too remember fondly the 12C. A glorious machine it was. But at present it's still Ryan Martin, the only man to dip below 218 in the Porsche, as mentioned. The Scotsman ruled in the roost, but not by a huge amount. Looking at his sector times, very close indeed to his pursuer, Chris Boland. Again, members of our RAF, so we thank them all for their service. And there's James King, as we saw in the BMW, Matt Forrest in the Ford. James Taylor rounding out the top 5 currently, two in a Porsche, but you have to go right the way down to 7th before you go outside of a second from that top time, which, considering how long a lap it is here in Spa, that is very impressive indeed. As James King has just improved on his times. He's improved his time but not his position. Remains in 3rd, now just 2/10 behind Chris Boland.
Yeah, and you're right to point out this is a very long circuit indeed. So those kind of times are pretty good in terms of their closeness. You probably, due to really mark it against a normal circuit, in quote unquote, you probably want to decrease it by maybe 1.5 times, if you like. That's difficult maths to do, I know, but just imagine that. Anyone within a second and a half around here is probably within a second around a normal length circuit. After all, we're over 7 kilometers round here, so it is impressive and good to see that we've got so many near. And the key point with that is that those are the drivers who will likely stay within the draft of the race leader early on here. That's going to be a pretty important story in this race. In the draft, you can not only stay close with that bit of extra straight line speed down the Kemmel Straight especially, but actually you can save a bit of fuel as well, and that's going to be pretty important as we get to the pit stop phase. These cars are limited to 45% of their full tank capacity, and that means they won't be going much past half an hour. When the race is 40 minutes, they're certainly going to have to make a pit stop, but if they can shorten that pit stop as much as possible, then they will be in a good place to win, because I'd imagine the front group will remain quite large through the early point of this race.
Very, very true. That's a lovely livery, just plain black. But I confess a bit more of a fan of that one than the multicolour one. Chris Boland has just bettered his time, as has our pole sitter. We've just seen Ryan Martin come over the line, a 2:17.779 on the board for him. There is James King. Oh, he ran that livery before. I recognise that. He's running on the BMW. So last time I had the pleasure of commentating on the AFvRC, it was a GT3 spec series. It was a series of short races rather than one 40-minute race as we are doing this time, and James King was running that very same livery. So good to see that back out. He comes back into the pit lane. His time a 2:18.501, which he set on the previous attempt. Sees him in 3rd position at the moment. So less than 2 minutes remaining. So if you're in the pit lane, you are not going to be getting out and setting a new lap. Here is Connor Eggert in the 6th place Porsche. His time at 2:18.904 is just over a 10th behind James Taylor. Can he improve in this occasion? Not this time. Has got time to complete this particular lap, so we'll see what he is able to do in the very lime green. Oh, not ideal way to start the lap, just kicking up a bit of dust on the exit of La Source. Not an ideal way to start the lap, but we'll follow him through nonetheless. Into Eau Rouge, keep the car nice and balanced, nice and steady up the top here. Many cars have been cannoned into the wall as they come through. Ready on up onto the Kemmel Straight then. This is slipstreaming heaven, and almost crucial to get the best opportunities you can into Les Combes. The chicane here, you need to get over to what? So he didn't really swing very far to the left-hand side to get Malmedy. It is a short run now downhill into Bruxelles, as we'll cut to Chris Boland in one of the multicolored Porsches, just coming to the end of his lap. So he's nearly half a second behind Ryan Martin now. So his personal best in the previous lap of 2:18.2. That was a 2:18.4 for Chris Boland, and he pulls over his qualifying done, no higher than second for him. We'll cut back to Connor Eggert now. So he's done a bit more than of the lap. That is Pouon that he's just come through down towards the Fania chicane. Stay hard over to the right to get the exit you can from the exit of the Fania chicane. Oh, and again, just tiny bit of dust being kicked up on the exit. Now Campus into Stavelo. Very, very crucial to get these corners right. You're on the gas for quite a while. We're now coming through Port Frères. We now cut to Matt Forrest in the Ford. completing his lap. So 4th position currently for him, 2:18.711, as the ever energetic flagman has got the checkered flag out. You can't park there, sir. No improvement for Matt Forrest. Conor Egget then coming to complete his lap in the green Porsche. Doesn't trouble the sausage curb too much, keeps the car nice and settled. What does he get on the board? 2:18.904 his previous best. 2:18.9 still consistent, not quicker than his previous effort. Good efforts there, and a 40-minute pit stop race doth await us. I'm looking forward to this. I say this every time I commentate. I make no apology for saying so, but it's just something magical about Spa, and like I say, you're a GT3 machinery, and Spa is a marriage made in heaven.
Exactly. I said at the start, there's a reason why the biggest GT3 race in the world takes place here over the course of 24 hours, of course, in the increasingly the middle of summer, in what's become a bit of a endurance racing 24-hour month in June. But yeah, it's 40 minutes we've got round here. I think it should be a very interesting race as well. Those qualifying results were quite telling, actually, because they were set in stone, I would describe, quite early, actually. Ryan Martin did just gently extend his margin again and again, but in very small increments. And actually the order didn't change very much after that first lap, so it shows that everyone was pretty well prepared, and they hit their qualifying limit quite early during that session, and everyone could probably have been pretty satisfied after 10 minutes rather than needing the whole 20, but nobody could really improve on their position, bar a few at the very end there. And so what we're going to get is a very close start to this race with everyone so well prepared. We're going to get, I would say, a large group running away at the start of the race, because even though Ryan Martin's got nearly half a second over Chris Boland, you've got to maybe reduce that slightly for a normal circuit. And of course, remember that Boland will have immediately the slipstream of Ryan Martin ahead of him, which will help him keep very, very close indeed to the driver who will surely lead out of La Source the opening lap anyway. And so that should help everybody else stay with the front group, and then it gets very dangerous for Ryan Martin. If he leads and doesn't get away, then everybody else will be able to fuel save, and he will have a longer stop than the others, which he's surely got to avoid.
That's the thing, isn't it? And you were alluding to this at the top of the show. So the drivers will have to take on fuel. Their fuel tanks are not big enough to do the full 40-minute race without it. It is optional whether they change tyres or not. So how long they spend at the fuel could be the difference between, with how close we anticipate this race to be. That could be the difference between leading a pack and being at the back of it. And with how close these times are, slipstreaming is going to be very, very important. Ryan Martin in the unenviable position of inevitably giving his slipstream to those around him, especially early on when the cars are a little bit heavier. He's going to be under pressure when they come into Les Combes for the first time.
Yeah, he is. However, there is going to be that sense of caution, because nobody's quite sure, I'm certainly not sure, how infused everybody's going to be by leading so early on. So it's going to be an interesting dynamic on the way up towards Les Combes for the very first time, because as you say, normally the leader is under threat at Spa. It's not the best place in the world to get pole position, that's certainly true. However, it's difficult to see everybody dying to get that first position early on, because they will be fearful about dragging everybody round. So it's going to be very interesting indeed as we see the qualifying results there.
Yes, so Ryan Martin and Chris Boland will be taking the front row. James King and Matt Forrest will have row 2. James Taylor and Conor Egget on row 3, with Tom Stevens and Alex Pantelli on row 4. John Finch, Chris Pawley, row 5. Dan Cross and Scott Eastwood, row 6. Sam Bunn, Steve Ward, row 7. And Darren Barris, Dan Hardwick will take the back of the field, having not set a time in qualifying. Now, it is a full lap, parade lap or warm-up lap. This being a newly implemented circuit to iRacing, it is a full lap behind the safety car. And so some drivers potentially out of position. Alex Pantelli has been a championship front runner in this series and finds himself right down on row 4. So some sound to make up for him. Again, unsurprising to find Ryan Martin and Chris Boland, the championship, well, comparatively championship dominators. They do have quite a points gap to, or have had, I should say, a points gap to the rest of the field. Either way, though, we should see some amazing fighting going on. Now, I have a very important question for you, Mr. O'Leary. Is it Speaker's Corner or is it No Name Corner?
Oh, Jackie X curve, even indeed.
Well, Jackie is curve, I beg your pardon. Yes.
Yeah, I think I heard someone in one race call it Liège as well, like the city. Anyway, that's not a very common one. No name for me, maybe for pure nostalgic reasons, but it's no name for me. I don't really know where this Speaker's Corner came from. Obviously, Jackie X is paying homage to one of Belgium's greatest ever drivers, but not. Speaker's Corners is certainly down on the list for me.
I'm in the same boat. I've called it No Name for as long as or referred to it as No Name Corner for as long as I can remember. And I'm pretty sure I'm a darn sight older than you. So, No Name it is, as we see our very colourful field working their way past us. So, of course, they can't overtake the safety car. They have to do this lap at safety car speed. So, he's going to be several minutes. They've got to get around the field. So, a pair of Porsches lead the field. Then is the BMW and the Ford on row 2, riding on board with that gloriously growling Mustang of Matt Forrest. Let's work our way around Bruxelles down towards the aforementioned No Name Corner. Call it Speakers, call it Jackie X curve, call it what you will. And again, he wandered too wide there, and because again you're on the gas for quite a while, these cars will they do pull on flat out probably towards the tail end of the race. They may. They want to have trimmed out as much of the downforce as they possibly can due to the amount of right foot going on, but then they don't want to lose the balance for the corners they do have to navigate at high speed. Always a difficult one there, but again, which way would you go for a low, as little downforce as you possibly can in Spa? I'm not much of a driver, so I don't know this from personal experience.
I would go for pretty low downforce, especially for the race. I mean, qualifying you might be able to benefit a little bit more from high downforce, but certainly in the race, I think you'd stay away from it. And yeah, on Puan, I think it would be at least a break and a downshift, to be honest, on the way through, even on low fuel, because partly because of the downforce that they strip out, but actually at high speeds these GT3s are not very good through the corners anyway. They've got a whacking great spoiler on the back and decent front end aerodynamics as well, but they're no single seater by any means in terms of that aerodynamic downforce. Their downforce comes through the mechanical grip at slower corners, which there are not a lot of around here. They'll be strong through the bus stop chicane and so on, but there aren't very many corners that are really GT3 suitable on paper, but the long straights should provide good racing, and that's exactly what we're here for. So formation lap nearly over and 40 minutes of racing ahead of us, and what this formation lap, by the way, has also done is just ensured that the pit stops will come even earlier, because of course they will have burned about half a lap of racing fuel during this non-racing lap.
Very true indeed. So as the field now starts to, they've done the practice. The qualifying, of course, is over. It is time to get the business part of the race dealt with. The safety car will now peel its way into the pit lane. Field led onto the start-finish straight by Chris Boland and Ryan Martin. And we are racing here in Spa-Francorchamps, and again Ryan Martin wastes no time in getting to the racing line. That's a good start by James King, gets the inside line into La Source. He demotes Chris Boland a position. Now we've got a few, well, you're going to have plenty of side-by-sides in any early race, but Ryan Martin trying his best to get away from the rest of the field as early as he possibly can. Caught Chris Boland napping there. The BMW slots into second. Good start for James King.
Very good start, and now Boland's got a decision to make here. Does he push the BMW on and try and catch Martin that way, or does he go for himself? He clearly believes that on his own. He can get closer to Martin, who's going to give the slipstream to the BMW. The Porsche not great in a straight line anyway, but he doesn't need the slipstream. Chris Boland gets back into second place, back to where he started, because he was caught napping a little bit there on the front straight, and the jump that Ryan Martin has got may already give him enough of an advantage to have broken the slipstream on the field behind.
What a superb start from the Scotsman again. Ryan Martin, championship leader coming into this round, and this asserting as to why. Absolutely superb stuff. So it is Martin from Boland, from King, your top three at the moment. Then behind them, Matt Forrest still in fourth. Then a parade of Porsches behind. You know, Conor Eggert, James Taylor, Alex Pantelli, and Chris Pawley, the next four Porsches in line. Then right behind Chris Pawley is Tom Stevens, and the lead of the Ferraris, Justin Taylor. Oh, that was trouble. That's Scott Eastwood. That's gone for a tumble. That's one of the McLarens. And I think Steve Ward got him in that. And that's one of the Porsches also going wide. That, I think, is James Taylor. That's it's going difficult because they're all in the same livery. But I believe that was James Taylor that's not had a good start, starting in fifth. He's lost the spot to Conor Eggert, who's got his nose full of Ford at the moment.
Yep, just a little bit wide on the exit of the campus chicane, and that has created a bit of a gap in front of James Taylor here. But yeah, it was Scott Eastwood who went around initially on the way out of Pouron. It was the second part. He just got a little bit wide. I could just see him start to lose the rear end in the background, and our camera cut away just as he was fully spinning in front of Steve Ward, who's also down pit lane. That's 2 of the 16 who started this race already in pit lane after lap 1.
Unfortunate, but hopefully they do have a fast repair they can use if they so opt to do so, and hopefully we'll see them back in the race. As that's Pantelli that nearly slams into the back of James Taylor. That's thrown him completely off rhythm and allowed Tom Stevens to come through in the black Porsche to claim the beg your pardon, that's Chris Pawley, excuse me, that has come through up into 8th position. Alex Pantelli back down into 8th place. That's Tom Stevens in the Ferrari behind, looking on, so waiting for his opportunity to see what he can do. Just going out of the shot there, you saw Conor Eggert very close to the Ford of Matthew Forrest. The Porsche having a look on the inside, coming out towards Lake Com. Can't get the move done on this occasion, staying very, very big in the fall as he goes for an opportunity in Malmedy. Brave couldn't quite pull it off though, but look how much pressure he's putting on Matt Forrest. That
was very brave, and not a place you often see a move. Sometimes you can see side by side from the Lecombe chicane itself move through into Malmedy, which creates side by side through there, but very rarely you see a move started like that. And Conor Eggert, fair play to him for not driving straight into the side of the Ford, and fair play to Forrest for giving the room required for the two of them to make themselves through that corner. So good racing between the two of them, but no positional change in the end. Chris Pawley stays in 7th. I think he's dropping out now and again, but he is still there in 7th place, and he is the biggest mover forward, tied with Darren Berris, who started at the back after not putting in a qualifying lap. As there he goes again. James Taylor, I think for the 2nd lap in a row, was running slightly wide there out of the campus chicane.
He's flirting a bit with the dust. That will bite him eventually. As behind, it looks like the Ferrari of Tom Stevens has managed to get past Alex Pantelli to demote him a further position. There he is now in 9th position. Next car down the road is the BMW of Dan Cross. It's around about 2.5 seconds back. Just see them coming into camera shot. So a bit of a gap forming there. But Ryan Martin leading the way by over 2 seconds now over Chris Boland. Alex Pantelli now thinking about how he's going to make up lost ground as the tower now comes to us. Fastest lap, unsurprisingly, by Ryan Martin. Superb effort. I think Scott Eastwood and Steve Ward have rejoined the race, or albeit they are a lap down following that opening lap incident, but hopefully they'll be able to join in with some scraps nonetheless. They are back on circuit. Good to see all 16 cars now circulating. So Alex Pantelli now. The first couple of laps are dealt with. The rough pecking order being formed. So he's got a decision to do. Conor Eggert, again, is really hustling the Ford. Look at the defensive posture that Matt Forrest has gone for. Gluing himself to that inside line, coming down towards the Camel Straight. Conor Eggert noses into the lead. The Ford has the initial inside line. Porsche then gets the inside. Now the Ford gets the inside again, but Matt Forrest, great defensive driving, but that's wrong-footed him on the exit of Malmedy. Can the Porsche pull alongside for the inside of Bruxelles? Not quite. Matt Forrest, great defensive driving, just and only just hangs on to fourth.
Only just, yeah, very, very close indeed. When you do go around the outside through the second part of Lecom, it does give you a bit of an advantage through Malmedy, but Forrest did just throw himself into that right-hander a little bit too much. It allowed Eggert to get back to the inside, but the traction wasn't quite good enough for the Porsche. Needed the inside at Bruxelles, which should surely have given him the place, but again, he couldn't quite do it. And the Porsche is going to run into some problems here. If Eggert has gone for even a tiny bit too much downforce, then the Porsche is going to be eaten alive on the straights by the Ford Mustang, which is a lot more powerful in engine terms, and it's not that much more aerodynamic, to be honest. The Porsche will get eaten alive by the Ford in a drag race, so he's got to think about this in other ways. To be honest, he may be even tempted to just stick behind him for the entirety of this first stint, save fuel, overtake him in the pit stops, and then consolidate fourth place. But that's a pretty difficult thing to swallow, pill to swallow, only 7 minutes and 3 laps into this race.
That's the thing, isn't it? Your racing instinct wants to get the job done, wants to push on, but realistically, you have got to think about how long the race is. Granted, only 40 minutes long, but that's still plenty enough when you're trying to apply the pressure or when you're trying to absorb all the pressure in the world. So it's going to be a long day for them, for the pair of them that are in this particular battle. And the Porsche nearly gets into the back of the Mustang, coming through La Source, just about avoids impact there. Now the grunt of the Mustang will tell, but again, that slipstream is going to come good as they come through the Kemmel Straight again. Let's see how they get on through Radeon, through Kemmel, and onto the Kemmel Straights. We've got a replay here. What have we got? So this is actually a previous lap. So this is where Conor Eggert got alongside. Oh, it's the live scene, the beg your pardon, is actually on board with Conor Eggert. It's pretty much a replay of last lap. Does he get it done this time? Nearly takes the nose of the Mustang, but it hasn't quite closed the door. Matt Forrest is still there, gives necessary racing room, but does manage to complete the move on the exit of Malmedy. So that is now Conor Eggert up into fourth.
Just about. The difference that time was that he was a bit braver on the brakes through the first part, and there was a danger of history repeating itself there, with Forrest getting a good exit and a good run to the inside of Malmedy, but Eggert was braver around the outside there too, and so got the move done, and now we'll hope to race away, because as I say, if he doesn't get away, then the Ford Mustang will be right back again doing the same thing in reverse in the same part of the track next time round, as that's been going on as well, by the way. Paulie has got past Taylor there, James Taylor seemed to slow down on the exit of Bruxelles. Not sure why. It looked to me like a slowdown penalty.
Oh, and that's Taylor. He loves doing that. He loves going for a bit of a play in the dust on the exit of the Fanny chicane. That's not going to do him any favours if he keeps doing that. Now, this is going to be a defensive exercise for Conor Eggert. Now, this is going to be a bit more of a playground for the Mustangs. They come through towards the chicane once more. Blanchimont, all right foot. Is the Mustang going to try and bounce out the inside of the chicane? Well, no, the Porsche keeps that defensive posture. And I wonder then if Matt Forrest is thinking about trying to reenact the scenario we saw last time around, but rolls reversed on that Kemmel Straight. And again, look at the corner exit speed for Conor Eggert. Superb from the chicane. And it may well just be that denies Matt Forrest an opportunity to attack coming up towards Lecom once more.
Well, it does look like a big margin, but I'm not even sure that will be enough, to be honest, for the Porsche. It's one of the weaker cars in a straight line, in my experience anyway, one of the weaker GT3s in a straight line, and the Ford is very powerful. I mean, that big front end isn't hiding nothing, so it's very, very strong in a straight line, as you might be able to imagine. Just look at the delta coming down and down. It might just be enough in the end, actually. It was over half a second on the exit of the straight, and time's coming down, but not nearly enough. So Eggert has gotten away with it this time round. Just a case of whether he can continue to get away now through this next lap. But that's an important first moment for the Porsche, actually, to stay ahead of the Mustang on that first time down the Kemmel Straight while leading this group is a pretty significant moment for Eggert.
James Taylor trying to regain that sixth position that he's pretty much surrendered to Chris Pawley last lap. Maintains his posture behind fellow stablemate, fellow Porsche of the number 88 of Chris Pawley. Right behind him is the lead Ferrari of Tom Stevens. Close enough to attack just yet, but he's been looming there for a while. Alex Pantelli not far behind. Just see Dan Cross, the lead BMW. Sorry, that's James King in third. We haven't seen James King for a while, so that's why I forgot about him up in third position. Good effort there. The top four now. Conor Eggert has he's given himself a second's gap from the Ford. Look at that, just at the bottom of the shot there. So really did a great job of just getting the Fan Chicane campus and Stabilo absolutely spot on. He gave himself a big amount of breathing space. Not sure that's going to come down significantly for Matt Forrest. So has Conor Eggert done what you need to do, as along with James Taylor has a look on the inside line coming up towards the chicane. Good racing room being given for Chris Pawley, but no position change. That's going to bring the Ferrari of Tom Stevens. Oh, nearly too wide on the exit of the chicane. They remain where they are for now.
Taylor may have been a bit too nice actually into the chicane there. Of course, don't want to go barreling into the side of Pawley, but could have been a bit harsher, as there was contact. Stevens got into the back of Taylor, almost brought himself to a complete stop in avoidance. Pantelli won't take advantage on the way towards Eau Rouge, because that would be a little bit silly. He's just going to push for now and then may go for it on the way towards Les Combes. Up the hill they go, and surely Taylor's going to have a chance here, but Pantelli certainly will if he wants to have a go. He'll have a look to the outside, no, inside again maybe. The Ferrari goes on the defensive, which shows you that Stevens was maybe more worried about being overtaken than he really needed to be. But now Pantelli will go for it on the outside. Well, sort of set tentatively actually, and will actually stay in 9th place.
In the background of the shot, you actually saw John Finch in the McLaren defending against Darren Berris in the next Ford. So there's a great battle going on there. That's for 11th position. As the duel, well, there's several duels going on. We've got this one between Pawley and Taylor. Then right behind them is Stevens and Pantelli. Cross is in there somewhere. Dan Cross and his BMW. Doesn't quite have a playmate yet. You can see him in between the pair we've just mentioned and the next one, the Finch and Berris combination. Very great battles going on here as we are. I was going to say fast approaching the halfway stage. Not too far away. Some drivers may opt to take a bit of an earlier pit stop. They can't do it too early though, because otherwise they will not have enough fuel to get to the end of the race. You were surmising, given that they've got around about 30 minutes, give or take, from the tank restriction they got leading into this race. So we'll see. If that is the case, then they could pit now, but who wants to take that chance? You want to make your pit stop as short as possible, but equally, you don't want to be having to fuel save towards the end. Your fuel saving in Spa is a very painful experience.
Well, fuel saving anywhere will damage you enough. I think the more damaging thing may be the heavy fuel load as well. You've got to remember it does have a lot of weight as Taylor goes down the inside and makes a move on Pawley. That was pretty textbook actually in the end, and Pantelli making a similarly textbook move on the Ferrari of Stevens, back for 8th place now as well. So those were pretty good and ordinary moves on the way towards the chicane, but maybe not the best place to do it. You know that the Kemmel Straight is only just round the corner, and there will be a chance for a response for Pawley and Stevens in short order. So we'll see how that transpires on the way up the hill and in towards Les Combes this time round. Yeah, I don't think anybody will be taking the risk early on because of the weight that is taken on by that fuel load. You ideally want to run this as long as possible, as long as you're not stuck behind anybody. If you're stuck behind someone, then you might as well pit early, but if you're not, then take the less fuel load. And there's the flash of the lights from Pawley, making that clear to Taylor that he's not going to be attempting to make a pass, so just get on with it and focus forward.
Yeah, Tom Stevens trying to second guess what Pantelli's doing. Matt Forrest has closed back in on Conor Eggert. Whilst we were focusing on the battle for 6th position, or battle for 6th, 8th and 11th, the Ford has managed to close back in on the green Porsche of Conor Eggert. So Conor was built up a good second gap or so from when we last saw, and I really thought that the Porsche was going to have it in hand to continue to move away from Forrest, but Matt Forrest in that Mustang has had other ideas. Have they closed in a bit on James King? Well, again, some of the drivers up front may well just be not pushing as much as they potentially can, just maybe just eking out their fuel a bit more. Again, they do have to be careful, as it's a long lap here. Oh, that was a bit uncomfortable for Matt Forrest. Yeah, you saw the car got all kinds of out of shape coming into camper chicane and into the campus turn, and look how much time that cost him. Just one small mistake, and that has cost him a second or so from Conor Egger. He worked hard to close the gap back down. He's now got to do it all over again.
Yeah, he has seemingly wanted to stay behind. I don't think he was particularly desperate to actually get into fourth place, but he certainly was wanting to benefit from the Porsche slipstream. As a battle that certainly hasn't separated apart is this one for sixth place between Taylor and Paulie, and there is a stop. So the first scheduled stop of the day coming a couple of laps before halfway, and it's interestingly a driver leading a group. That's not something I was expecting, as Taylor is the first to come in. He'll set the benchmark for those making scheduled pit stops with a 40-minute race and a 45% fuel limit. I should suspect the fuel time be somewhere between 10 and 15 seconds, and that no tyres will need to be taken.
Sam Bunn and the McLaren also following suit, so opting for an earlier pit stop rather than using up everything they started with, unless they started light. Is a potential, but I'm not entirely sure they would have done. No. That's drivers are strange creatures. As we now look at Dan Berris continuing to fend off the advances of James Taylor. So this is has Dan Berris gone too deep? He's gone too deep in the McLaren. He's going to have to give that position up, and he does indeed. So that is Darren Berris then through into 10th position. John Finch is going to have to do that again in the very green green McLaren. I believe he was in a bright green Merc, if I remember correctly, last time around. So very much approve of his choice of colours. So those that have pitted then, of course, back out on circuit, somewhat displaced, but we'll see how their strategy plays out as we are fast approaching halfway in this race.
Yeah, both of those two used to be in different manufacturers. Barris has gone from the Mercedes to the Ford, and we've seen Finch, who went off there through Lecom, go from the Ferrari to the McLaren, but it's not very dissimilar looking car, is it, the McLaren, really, than the Ferrari. They do look quite similar to I don't know how similar they actually drive. Maybe the fact they look similar is a look to the fact that they're not actually that dissimilar to drive either. But yeah, that's what he's chosen to go for upon the new updates and the new additions to the GT3 board, if you like, in iRacing now. It's down on the brakes again. The end of the bus stop chicane go the leaders, and Eggert this time the driver to make a stop, Conor Eggert. By the way, their stops for James Taylor and Sam Bunn were 14.8 and 16.0 seconds respectively.
Antelli and Berris also in. So more drivers opting now to pit. This one, however, not interested in seeing the pit lane. Leader Ryan Martin flashed to the lights to indicate to the back marker, which I believe is Steve Ward. Yes, it is, in the almost Italian coloured Ferrari. Ooh, Steve Ward really should have backed out of that, and I'm not sure Ryan Martin's too pleased with it. But, I mean, if nothing else, it gave Ryan Martin slipstream down the Camel Straight. Giving an advantage, though, is not something a race leader needs. And there we go. So the Ferrari now bleeds out of the throttle and lets the race leader through. So Ryan Martin then continuing along his merry way. And, of course, more pit stops still to do as we now look at Tom Stevens in the Ferrari. So he's got Chris Paulie directly ahead of the black Porsche with Dan Cross in the second BMW right behind him. And no particular challenges. Dan Cross could get a little bit closer, but the pit stops are going to play their part for the moment. So I'm not. We'll see if anybody chooses to make a move at this point. But Pantelli, Berris, and Hardwick are quite close together. I see for 11th position. That's Dan Hardwick in the Ferrari. Not sure. I don't think he's pitted as yet. He hasn't. So
no.
Top, what do we look at that? Top 8 yet to see the pit lane along with Dan Hardwick. So still plenty more strategy to come out as we're now over halfway.
Yeah, plenty more. And because we're in the pit stop window now, it can mean a bit of a hold on the battles, but it won't for these two, because they both know that they will be racing each other at the end of the race. Alex Pantelli is now 11th, that of Darren Perez, who's made a great stop here, the shortest of them so far. He must have saved fuel, and he has been overtaking a lot of people during this part of the race. He got himself onto the back of the main group in the midfield, which has surely allowed him to lift off a little bit and take maybe a litre or two out of his fill during the mandatory pit stop that we have during this race. So that has voted him up the order. If he can work together with Pantelli here, then he'll be right with the others in the midfield group, or he can just elect to accept this is the only battle he's going to have for the remainder of the race, so they may as well begin now with just less than half the race remaining.
And we'll tell as Dan Perez gets a little bit fidgety behind the Porsche. No move made into the final chicane. Tom Stevens in the lead. Ferrari is now in. So his stop. See where he reappears. I think that's Dan Hardwick also coming in the second Ferrari. Who else is going to join them? So that is, now it's our top 7 yet to see the pit lane. Who is that? Oh, that's not Pantelli that they're closing in on. No, that's
Stevens is being
Stevens. Yeah, beg your pardon. Yeah,
so the Ferrari that just came out pit lane has made the tied longest stop along with Pantelli. They both made 15.2 second stops. It's not longest actually. Sam Bum was a bit longer, but he's a bit further behind. They've pretty much got together then, and Perez has caught them, which is the main change throughout the pit stop cycle. Still a top 7 to come in, and so may not be the biggest change as it turns out, but for now it is, because Perez is on the back of a couple of drivers he wasn't before, and he can maybe gain a couple of places as a result. These are, to remind you, battles that will remain for the remainder of the race, because these guys have made pit stops. They know they are in for the remainder of this race now with one another. They're fighting over whatever position this will turn out to be.
Now they've got a bit of a dilemma. Do they try and push now to get past the car that they are staring at the tail of, or do they just sit there and see what happens? Because if they're confident that they've got the fuel to get to the end, they're not interested in saving fuel, but they don't again want to give the advantage back to their opponents. Here we go. You've got several people on the same strategic idea. The top 3, top 4 have all come in. Will Chris Polly follow suit? And so does Dan Cross. So there we go. Almost the rest of the field coming in at the same time. Indeed, the whole of the remaining part of the field have now come in. So 7 cars, all with the same idea, getting over that halfway stage and now choosing to pit. So now is going to be a case of well, that's the very errant Porsche. My goodness me, Alex Pantelli, very, very deep to keep that charging Dan Perez behind. It's true, that was, I wondered if he was going to sail off into the barrier then. So pit stops being played out. Who's going to reappear where? Ryan Martin had actually a longer stop, but still comes out in the lead, but with Chris Boland right on his tail.
Yeah, well, the story there is that Chris Martin, sorry, not Chris Martin, he's not George. Ryan Martin, sorry, has made the longest pit stop of anyone, and that's why the lead gap is now down to 2/3 of a second to Chris Boland, who I was trying to say, in second position and closing in. James King is a lot closer as well, because he was shorter than both of them in the pit lane, so the top 3 are right close together now. Eggert and Forrest making their way down towards Lacombe at the moment, absolutely nose to tail. They stay single file, and then there's this midfield group I was talking about before. It's re-emerged. Pantelli was so close to hitting the back of Stevens there. The Ferrari was weaving around in the middle of the circuit, really sort of trying to hedge his bets almost, to trying to take the racing line and defend at the same time. Didn't really work, because Pantelli has gone through into 9th place.
That was close. I really wondered if Pantelli was going to slam into the back of Tom Stevens, but no impact between the two. We switch back to Matt Forrest and Conor Eggert. They've resumed their duel from previous, so this is still for 4th position. The Porsche still leads the Ford at the moment, but not by very much. And again, we're coming into the area that is a bit stronger for the Mustang, coming out of the Fantasy Chicane. as where the Porsche is still a little bit strong. And again, he's tapping the dust. The Mustang, oh, is he compromised his exit? Oh, he's spun. Oh, this is where it went wrong for Matt Forrest before. Oh, no, and that's, oh, goodness, Paulie. That's, no, sorry, it was Taylor, I think, that's hit him. Oh, no, it's huge damage to the pair of them. Well, that's really going to bunch this particular group up. And then, oh, very, very wounded number 2, James Taylor. Oh, no, that is never what you want to see. A big punch in the face for the Ford. Oh, what might have been for him. But this group is now completely bunched. Side by side for Tom Stevens. He's gone off the road trying to give necessary racing room. And then right behind him, my goodness me, this group needs to really sort it out very quickly. Stevens, Pantani and Barrett all side by side coming through the chicane. They just about make it, and in the background, in goes the wounded Mount Forest. Oh, goodness me. You never want to see it. And Taylor also follows suit.
Yep, Taylor will also come in because they are two very damaged machines, I'm afraid. In trying to distract the driver in front, the Ford just went into a bit of a spin, and it's so long, the Ford, that it blocks almost the entire road. And so James Taylor didn't really have a choice but to go straight into the side of it. He got the worst of that damage, by the way. I think I saw his front left wheel hanging off entirely. So normally that would mean longer damage repairs. In reality, it just means the fast repair will be taken by both, and they'll re-emerge in their positions further down the field outside the top 10. Here comes Cross, though, stepping into the void. One of the BMWs that haven't really been the car to pick so far, other than James King, who's made it work in the podium positions. Dan Cross has really made up some positions here from 11th position in qualifying. He's now fighting for the last spot inside the top 5.
Absolutely so. Chris Paulie has got a world of cars to defend against. So Chris Paulie also up 5 positions, started in 10th place, now inside the top 5, but with a lot of fast machinery right behind him. And look at Pantelli now. He's under pressure from Dan Berris next to the Fords. So, yeah, some work to do for him. So he's going to want to try and stay on the back of Tom Stevens, who he himself is having a go at Dan Cross. The BMW having to go very, very defensive, coming down to the Fanny chicane once again. The BMW manages to hang on to 6th for now, but that's exactly what Chris Paulie needs. He needs more pressure being applied to the BMW to give him some breathing space.
Certainly does, and this is doing just that, I think. Paulie is getting away to the tune of 3/4 of a second now. Through the Kerpel-Frere they go, and the BMW driver Cross has got to get his eyes forward now. He's got to forget about Stevens just for the moment, just for these next few corners. He needs to stay with Paulie as much as he can, because down the Kemmel Straight he will need that slipstream. He will be the one able to follow the Porsche and his slipstream, of course, so he absolutely needs to nail these final 2 corners, but instead he's being attacked by Tom Stevens again. Not quite to the same success this time into the bus stop, and he's done a good job there, Cross, at staying with Paulie. He will get the benefit of the slipstream on the Kemmel Straight. Now it's up to Stevens, who'll be looking behind him.
Porsche from BMW, from Ferrari, from Porsche, from Ford, from McLaren. What a combination of cars we are seeing at this stage of the race. Chris Paulie nearly going a little bit too deep on the exit of the source. That's going to allow Dan Cross to close in a little bit. The BMW now glaring very much into the soul of the black Porsche ahead. They come through Radion. Oh, the BMW looks a little bit uncomfortable there as it just came over the crest, but it's got the momentum. It's closing in. Less than 3/10 now separates the two. Is the BMW going to go for the move? Well, you see Chris Paulie is ready to defend. Now resumes to the racing line, and that is no change in position this time around. Tom Stevens falling a little bit off the back of these two, but he himself with pressure from Pantelli behind.
Yeah, it's pretty good for Cross at the moment. It's looking good. I mean, he might have stayed behind Paulie there just to make sure that he could get away from the rest, get that little bit more breathing room over the rest before really going on the offensive, but it's working for now. Look at Stevens, ragged through Bruxelles, under pressure, and certainly feeling it from Pantelli, who's right behind, Perez, who is the one after that, and then Finch as well. The first of the McLarens has even joined in this battle, so it's a very large group now. Fantastic entertainment as well. A 6-car train, all for 5th position, and it looks like it will remain so for the final 10 minutes. There will at least be some sort of big battle going on here for the final quarter of this race, and it's a wonderful thing for us to see.
Amen to that. So So Martin and Poland are, well, their duel seems to be resolved as the Scotsman again has opened up a few seconds lead over Chris Poland. James King is also on his own, but this particular group that we're watching is so nailed together as we look at Alex Pantelli under a lot of pressure again from Dan Barris. Dan Barris up 6 positions. Remember, he didn't set a time in qualifying, so he started right the way down in 15th, the penultimate spot on the grid. Now is trying to challenge for 8th place from the Porsche of Alex Pantelli. So Dan Cross, he's up 5 positions along with Chris Pauly. They've been the highest gainers from their qualifying positions. So what can Dan Cross do here? So the Porsche gets a decent exit from the chicane, but the BMW is not giving the Porsche any kind of quarter at all. Now, they were almost this kind of gap apart before on the previous lap, so we'll see if things change again. Into Eau Rouge, up and over Radion once again, and again the BMW goes to that bit of a tighter line, and that may well have given him the momentum he needs. It's under 0.3 of a second. The Porsche this time very defensive as they come onto the camel straight. That's going to force the long way around for the BMW. Is in? No, I did think that Dan Cross was considering that inside banzai, but opts not to. So they remain where they are once more.
Yeah, and the Porsche again feeling its weakness certainly in a straight line, and Paulie will be very aware of that now. The BMW towering onto the back of him every time they go up the Kemmel Straight. There won't be too many more chances for that to actually happen. I believe there are only 3 laps to go after this one, but we'll see about that first of all. But it's so far been a good defence for Paulie, or has it been Cross just biding his time? Not sure. He's certainly got less pressure from Stevens, who again looking a little bit more ragged towards the end of that last lap. Certainly made a mistake into La Source at the start of this one as well, but out of the bus stop chicane last time round, just ran wide to benefit his exit there. Will have picked up an incident point, of course, but you get 17 in one of these races, which is a standard sort of official amount that you would get in an official iRacing race, 17. After that you get a drive-through penalty, but clearly he feels he's got some to use up, because that was a very blatant running wide last time round. We'll see if he does it again.
Very close from Dan Cross as well, almost flirting with the dust there. So yeah, Spa used to be somewhat stringent on circuit limits when it comes to the dreaded iRacing points, but I guess time will tell whether the new laser scan version is as difficult to navigate. Right behind us, Pantelli and Barrett almost drawing side by side again, along with John Finch in that green McLaren, trying to, well, he is staying with the group, trying to join in. Also, I'm looking at Tom Stevens. He's closed in a little bit on the pair ahead of him. He fell to around about a second behind last time around. What was that Ferrari? Did he go a little bit too deep there? I guess time will tell. He's slightly compromised on the exit of La Source. Here we go again. So Cross from Paulie again, just under 0.3 of a second by the time they hit Eau Rouge. Now this forced the Porsche to be very, very defensive as they come onto the Kemmel Straight, and we'll see what he does this time. I suspect he's going to glue himself to the inside line. He does indeed. Now what will Dan Cross do? He's got the momentum to draw side by side. He has to think about it to the outside line. It's not too advantageous. He backs out of it. Doesn't choose to go for it. He knows he's got a few laps in which to try and make the move. He's forcing Chris Pauly into that defensive posture every single time. They know that gap between themselves and Conor Eggett is probably unassailable with the amount of laps we've got left. It's nearly 8 seconds. It's been hovering around 8 seconds for the last couple of laps between 5th and 4th. So pushing for another position beyond this is not going to yield any results. But that then begs the question, what you were alluding to earlier, Ewan, is Dan Cross going to try and make the move now and then have to defend against the Porsche, or is he going to try and leave it to the very, very last? Oops, a bit of a wander there for Chris Pauly. Again, like you say, may well just be utilising his incident points. You can see the rear view camera in our centre picture there. Tom Stevens in the Ferrari, looming very, very large. The Italian mark trying to push himself into 6th place.
Yeah, he may well be waiting for the end. I can't quite read him, though, at the moment, to be honest. Dan Cross seems to have the ability to go through, but not quite the desire for the moment, and he needs to be careful with that, because Stevens is getting more and more ambitious as this goes on. Cleaned up the last lap also, and he's getting closer again. Pantelli has started to make a few mistakes, and Beres is the one who's really close. You can see the group almost splitting into two here. That's the battle for 5th and the battle for 8th become two separate entities. Here goes Beres looking at the inside, then the outside, then braking early, causing Finch to do the same, and they will follow the leader through the bus stop chicane. Out through the end of another lap then, and that's with a confusing amount of laps remaining. It's very close to being 2 or 3. It might even be 3 laps remaining, because Ryan Martin is going at such a pace. He may well force an extra lap in this race, and I wonder who has got the fuel for that, because notably among this group, Darren Beres has got the shortest pit stop of anyone. If he's presumed this race is only going to the end of lap 17, then he may be in for a nasty surprise when it turns out he sees the white flag when he thought he'd see the checkered.
We will see. We've all seen drivers caught out in that manner before, especially at a track like Spa, where a miscalculation can mean you limping a very, very long way. Dan Cross not close enough this time. Chris Pauly doing exactly what he needed to do to prevent an attack from the BMW, but that is allowing Tom Stevens to close in further. He's been looming in the rearview camera of the BMW for a couple of laps now. And with a tiny bit of breathing space back to Alex Pantelli, that is also closing down, because Dan Beres making that slight mistake and throwing himself into the clutches of John Finch. Is that allowing the Porsche to close in on the back of the Ferrari? Well, I would have said so, but now does look like they're going to try and reunite this conga line to be 6 cars deep. Oh, is that a bit of a mistake there from Cross? Is that allowing the Ferrari to just get the momentum? No, not quite, it would seem. Maybe the BMW just struggles a little bit more through Pouon. Oh, I thought the Ferrari was going to make a lunge there, but he's wrong-footed himself. He's lost that momentum, and all that hard work that Tom Stevens has just done to close it on the back of Dan Cross is now gone.
Now it's gone down the pan, I'm afraid. He'll be hoping there are a couple of laps remaining here, because over the line here comes Ryan Martin. There are still 2.5 minutes remaining. It's 2 minutes 18 for a lap, so he will, by, oh goodness, about, well, 10 seconds, force an extra lap in this race. And as I say, everyone will be hoping that they've got the right amount of fuel on board for this. If there's only 1 lap left in the tank here, then they should be very concerned indeed, as Beres looks to the inside, and then, oh, it's almost like a replay of 1 lap ago. He looked to the inside very briefly before deciding it wasn't worth it, and then tucking back into line. I wonder whether he's eyeing up the last lap as well, and indeed the last corner, the last braking zone of this race, for making that 8th place move.
Time will tell. It's going to be a fascinating duel to watch. In our final 2 laps in this event, it has disappeared like lightning. It's such a brilliant race from our GT3 competitors. Here they come once again. They're a little bit more spaced out than they were on the previous lap. John Finch seems to really be struggling to slow that McLaren down. It's a couple of times he's nearly slammed into the back of Dan Beres' Ford. So it could be that he's just misjudging the braking point on that 720S. And as mentioned, it has recently been released, so lots of things for our drivers to learn about the newly introduced McLaren to iRacing. Also, I'm keeping an eye on that top lead. It's down to 1.5 seconds. Now, is Ryan Martin just taking it easy for these last few laps, or has he pushed his fuel gauge too far?
I would be surprised, because he is the leader after all, and he's taken on the longest stop of anybody in this race who's made scheduled pit stops today, other than Dan Harvick actually, who's done the longest. But anyway, doesn't really matter. He's down in 14th position. It is interesting though that Martin lost so much time last time around, 9/10 of a second on that previous lap. This will be the penultimate lap then, and maybe Chris Boland will just start to see this and think maybe there is still a chance for me in this race to try and win here. It would be a surprise if he did. Of course, Ryan Martin has been the dominant force in this GT3 Championship so far. However, he is coming under fire late on as they make their way out of the bus stop chicane and over the start-finish line for the penultimate time. There are seconds remaining. There will be another lap, and Ryan Martin will have to hang on here to a very narrow 1.3 second margin.
It'll be enough. At that pace difference, it will just about be enough, as the timer has now expired. as Darren Barris again sizes up a move along with Tom Stevens on Dan Cross. The BMW very, very defensive coming into the chicane for the penultimate time. So he can't concentrate on Chris Pauly as the McLaren is, the Ferrari is all over the back of the BMW. But that has dropped Dan Cross away from Chris Pauly. That is the break that the Porsche needed to almost guarantee he won't be attacked up until Les Combes. The BMW's quick. It's not going to close that gap down before the Les Combes chicane. If he was gambling on a last-ditch effort into that chicane, that opportunity has now gone. That's why that gamble is very, very dangerous when you've got other competitors nearby.
Well, yeah, the race is not over yet, though, of course. There will be down into that chicane one more time at the very end of this one. Let's see if it's going to happen down there or whether it's going to have to happen up here into Les Combes. This is the final chance for those who think this is their only chance, and Stevens has let it pass him by. Pauly, by the way, will be very glad for Stevens' presence again, because that time loss for Cross has just cost him enough time to allow Pauly away with the final spot inside the top 5. The battle will remain to be between Stevens and Cross now, as Barris has now dropped behind Finch. There has been a change for that 9th place.
Interesting. It looked like the Ford has relinquished that position. I wonder, exactly as you just said, that's a fuel problem. He's pulled over. I bet you was run out of fuel. I bet you that exactly as amazing call there. And Dan Barris is out. He's run out of fuel. He pushed the fuel limit a little bit too hard on his car. That is a great shame for Dan Barris. He was going great guns, up 6 positions from where he qualified, but lost the gamble of the fuel tank and is pulled over. That is the end of his day. But there was no challenge to the black 186 Porsche. Your winner for the 6th round of this GT3 Cup Championship for the AFvRC here in Spa is the Scotsman of Ryan Martin, chased home by the 86 Porsche of Chris Boland. Superb effort again. Bit of a gap back to the lead BMW of James King, rounding out the podium. And with the dropout of Dan Barris, does space this little pack out a little bit more. Pantelli had to think about a bit, bounds onto the inside of the chicane, doesn't go for it. Connor Eggett comes home in 4th. Chris Pauly 5th. Dan Cross holds on to 6th. Tom Stevens 7th. Alex Pantelli in 8th. John Fitch up into 9th. Following Ryan Martin's already parked. They don't have to give a litres worth of fuel as a fuel sample in sim racing. Matt Forrest ending up down following his big incident. He came home in 10th position. Sam Bunn 11th, James Taylor 12th, Dan Hardwick 13th, Scott Eastwood 14th, and Steve Ward a lap down in 15th position. What a race!
Yeah, fantastic race, especially that battle through the midfield was the most absorbing, but even the battle for the lead just got close towards the end. The winning margin going to be 1.1 seconds for Ryan Martin. It was that close. Chris Boland with a personal best on that last lap showed that he managed his tyres very well and utilised the low fuel to his advantage as well, but it wasn't quite enough in the end. Ryan Martin taking home another race win, but as I say, the battle between those in the bottom half of the top 10 was fantastic. Chris Pauly in the end hanging on, and actually not too much positional change in the end. The notable thing, Darren Barris dropping down the field from inside the top 10 in 9th place to running out of fuel, we suspect, on that last lap, and finishing, as records are showing at the moment, in last place, which I'm surprised with. I thought he'd at least be ahead of those who were a lap down, but apparently not. He's in last as far as I can see at the moment.
Yeah, that's what I see as well. And that is going to round out tonight's festivities. Thank you very much to those that have been with us either live or post-event. We've very much enjoyed your company. Again, we always thank the amazing services of our armed forces. Your contribution is always very, very much appreciated. Thank you very much, Ewan O'Leary, for joining me in the commentary box. A great pleasure to be alongside you, sir.
Yeah, thanks very much for being alongside me as well. It's a fun race for sure. 40 minutes round here, a good length of race, isn't it, to have? As you can see the results here, Ryan Martin the winner, but yeah, a great race overall.
Indeed. So without before any comes of Stewart's intervention, it is Ryan Martin from Chris Boland from James King, your podium 3, Connor Eggett 4th, Chris Pauly in 5th, Dan Cross 6th, Tom Stevens 7th, Alex Pantelli in 8th, John Finch 9th, Matt Forrest rounding out the top 10, Sam Bunn in 11th, James Taylor 12th, Dan Hardwick 13, Scott Eastwood 14. Dan Berries is classified as having finished in 15th with Scott Ward at the tail of the field. Oh. So we do have an opportunity to have a chat with our podium 3. Excellent stuff. So let's grab our race winner in. Have we got Ryan Martin? Are you with us?
I certainly am. Good evening.
Good evening to you. Well, it looked fairly straightforward. You got it. You had an absolutely storming start, and then that's the last we saw of you.
Well, it was all plain sailing until the third to last lap, and I almost lost the car completely. So after that, I hardly had any confidence. Boland was able to catch me so fast, but thankfully I was able to stay away from him. I think it was 1.3, 1.4 seconds at the end, which I didn't expect at the very start, considering I had such a gap. But yeah, that one mistake that I made on the third to last lap, it almost destroyed the car.
My goodness me! See, we didn't see it, so your secret was safe with us. You could have said, "I was just playing with Chris Boland." But I mean, we've enjoyed your company in various different machinery in the past. How's the Porsche fare to? I mean, you've done so well with the championship so far. So is it fair to say that the Porsche is dominant, or has it just been close and strong racing throughout so far?
I'd say myself and Chris Boland were definitely the two fastest guys in GT3s, and it just so turns out that we're both in the Porsche. I'd say that in other cars there's been different guys at the top. When we were in the GR86s, Chris Pauly was one of the main contenders, and then you had James King. He was also really quick in the GR86s. But I think since I really got iRacing, I've concentrated on GT3, and just by having the experience, I think that's what's given me the edge, because there's no doubt Boland is a quick guy, but I'm just able to stay away from him a little bit further than what he's able to catch me.
Awesome stuff. Any questions, Ewan?
Yeah, I mean, final part from me is about the pit stop phase, which you took the longest in.
Please don't mention pit stops. Please.
Sorry, go on. Go ahead. I mean, as I say, you had the longest stop of those around you. Just what was that down to, if you were aware of that at all?
So it's me not trusting my fuel calculator, right, which is one of the worst mistakes you could ever make. So I was looking at the amount of fuel it was telling me to put in, and I just thought that doesn't look right. So I increased it by about 10 litres, and that is the reason why I was in the pits for probably 8 to 10 seconds. Well, no, not that. Probably 6 seconds longer than anybody else because of my own stupidity. So I had plenty of fuel. I didn't need to do that, but for some reason, in the heat of the action, you make some terrible decisions, and I've learnt my lesson now. I'm always going to trust my fuel calculator because it seems to know better than me.
I don't blame you, by the way. I don't trust it often either, so you're not alone in that.
Yeah, it's difficult to trust AI, isn't it? But
yeah,
I suppose we're going to have to eventually.
Yeah.
In fairness, you were only 2 seconds slower than Chris Boland, so it wasn't as bad as you might think.
That 2 seconds seemed a lot longer at the time.
Great stuff. Well, I mean, brilliant win, Ryan. It really couldn't fault you at all. Mistake or not, you still come away with the top step. Brilliant stuff. Well done. Thank you for joining us, Ryan Martin.
Thank you very much, guys. Have a great evening.
Likewise to you, sir. Do you want to take this one, Ewan?
Yeah, let's do Chris Boland now, who finished in second place. Welcome in, Chris. Good to have you with us. Can you hear us?
Yeah, all good.
And we can hear you as well. It's all good as from our side. Let's chat a little bit about the end of that race. Ryan Martin just admitted to us that even if you might not have liked to, that he made a mistake a few laps from the end and then didn't have any confidence for the final few. Did you see that? Did you see and sense there was an opportunity towards the end?
Yeah, so looking at the delta with about 4 laps to go, the gap was pretty consistent, and then it started to sort of creep down, and then I could visibly see him coming back towards me. So I think about another 2, possibly 3 laps, I'd have been right on the back of him and maybe within a shout. But I know he's a good racer, so I know he'd have defended it well.
It would have been a good battle to watch. And I mean, the battle at the start never really transpired. I was looking forward to it, but felt that you didn't quite make the start that maybe you wanted to. Just tell us about the first lap there, because in the end you did drop to third briefly and have to get even back to second before you could even think about Ryan.
Yeah, I was hoping you wouldn't mention the start. That was one of the worst starts I think I've ever made. I took the chicane way too tight and ended up coming out about 3 or 4 car lengths ahead of him, I think. So he was in my blind spot, so I couldn't see where he was. And then obviously he took full advantage of that and got the jump on me, and so did Kingy. So yeah, hands up to that. That was my own fault.
So does that make you feel like a missed opportunity today, or just a second place gain for yourself?
No, definitely a missed opportunity. I think our pace was, he was faster than me, but I think if I could have stayed in the draft, it would have been a bit of a different race. So yeah, to not throw it away, but to spoil it quite so early on was really disappointing.
Well, still second place, and if it's a bad second place, then you know you're going in the right direction. Certainly,
Yeah.
Congratulations on that another podium and second place here tonight, and thanks for coming to chat to us afterwards too.
Thank you very much, guys. Top work.
Thanks very much, Chris Boland, second place here tonight at Spa.
Great stuff. Right, let's have our third podium sitter in then. James King, are you with us?
I am, yes, hello.
Hello, James. I remember that livery. You wore it on a BMW last time I spoke to you, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I always enjoy supporting Craig. He's a good friend of mine.
But you, I mean, once again, you really made the Beamer sing. It looks like it's a bit of a Porsche parade at the top of the championship, but you're making them work for it, and that start was storming.
Yeah, I'm normally quite observant when it comes to starts, because I've been around iRacing for a long time now, and I've seen most tricks in the book, and I just had that feeling that it was going to be a go just before the green to try and catch someone out, and obviously it caught Chris.
And then it ended up kind of being a little bit lonely for you for the rest of the race.
Yeah. I mean, the BMW clearly isn't as fast as the Porsche is, so it was a case of hold on as long as I can, and then try and keep ahead of the guys battling behind. And thankfully, I managed to do both of those and come away with a podium.
So was there any particular moments when, as Ryan was saying, that he made a mistake in the last few laps, or any particular moments, because we after the start we barely saw you, so was there any particular moments you thought, oh dear, that this isn't going very well?
To be fair, I think I had a pretty clean race. I think I saw both Ryan and Chris have one or two slower laps where I gained a bit of time, and then the pit stops as well. I think I was, well, of the people who put enough fuel in, I was the fastest pit stop. I think Darren in a Mustang tried to short fuel a little bit and it caught him out. But yeah, I think I gained some 3-4 seconds in the pits on Ryan.
Oh, superb stuff. Any questions, Ewan?
Well, I guess a simple one from me. We didn't see very much of you during that race. Was it as lonely as it seemed for you driving that one, or were you quite enjoying being in third?
I quite enjoyed it, because I've been struggling to run this far up the field. I've been sort of hanging around sort of between 5th and 8th for the first rounds we've had so far, so it was nice to be fighting up the front a bit more.
Exactly. No, congratulations from me on third.
Yeah, absolutely. So great stuff. Thank you very much, James King.
Thank you.
And that is going to bring our festivities to a close for tonight. Thank you very much to those that have been with us. And we look forward to seeing you again here at AFvRC. Until next time, thank you very much and good night.